30 years to the month, Dianna Lewis shot and killed her dad and stepmom. And just a few days ago, she was back in the very same courtroom she pled guilty in. But before we get into that hearing, let's look back on what has happened so far. Now, the murders of Peggy Parmalee Lewis and Rob Lewis took place on September 22, 1995. And then just 2 years later, Lewis admitted to the crime while under the influence of extreme mental or emotional stress and was sentenced to 80 years for committing 2 counts of mitigated deliberate homicide. Now, up until 2013, Lewis lived at the Montana State Hospital in Warm Springs. But then that year, a judge ruled for her to be released to a residential care facility in Billings. 3 years after that, her release was revoked for not following her court-ordered requirements. She was sentenced to 60 years with 50 suspended, spending at least 1 year at a pre-release center. She was granted parole again in 2022. And last week, she again appeared in court for a hearing to revoke her parole. I was at that hearing where testimony was heard. Lewis appeared in Judge Michael McMahon's courtroom for a petition for revocation of suspended sentences on 2 counts. One for a failure to remain law-abiding, and the second for a failure to comply with a medication treatment regimen. The Broadwater County Attorney's Office called multiple witnesses who had recent interactions with Lewis, including a Yellowstone County deputy sheriff. He encountered Lewis in April of this year on I-90 between Billings and Laurel. She was walking on a median around 3:30 in the morning, and once she was approached by the deputy, he says she began walking in the middle of the interstate.
She continuously talked about how God loved her and she loved God. She didn't need any assistance from law enforcement, and that basically we were all evil.
Detention center staff from 3 different counties also testified.
We couldn't trust from minute to minute what she was going to be like.
They said she often refused to take her medication, including a mood stabilizer or antipsychotic. Lewis, who was born in the United States, said that she would like to be deported.
I don't have to put up with this. I want to go home. I always have wanted to go home. I don't belong here. When do I get to go home?
Judge McMahon found that the state proved both counts, not remaining law-abiding and not taking her medication. Lewis's sentencing will be held on November 14th. For those close to the case, hearings like this can take them back to the day of the murder. I spoke with someone who reported on Lewis roughly a decade ago, and with the daughters of Peggy Parmalee Lewis, who are still looking for justice 30 years later.
Feels like day one again.
Susan Graham and Barb Thomas are the daughters of Peggy Parmalee Lewis and stepdaughters of Rob Lewis.
You never left a room without her saying, "I love you." He was a special guy that was just so full of laughter and love.
The 2 are both now older than what their mom and stepdad were at the time of their murders.
It's hard to remember Mom and Rob as the persons and not the crime.
Another person who has followed the case is Eve Byron, who reported on Lewis's hearings back in the 2010s.
When I had called you yesterday and you heard the name Dianna Lewis, what was your first thought?
I thought, oh my goodness, here she goes again.
Byron has experience not only covering Lewis, but also mental health in Montana.
All too often, I think that our society fails people, and we don't give them what they need for whatever reasons.
To keep their memories alive, the family put together a traveling memorial for Peggy and Rob that honors crime victims and can be used by judges and law enforcement. Reporting in studio, I'm Allie Kaiser, MTN News.